Today, I want to talk about the One Ring. No, not the one that everybody's going crazy for, spending gobs of money buying collector's boosters trying to open. I'm talking about the actual card and how well it plays in the game. So let's take a look here. I, for one, actually have a copy of it that I opened at the pre-release, and I plan on sticking it into something eventually. But we have to look at see what it's kind of like in current existing cards to kind of get a baseline for how good or bad it may be. These are the four cards that I see acting in a similar capacity to how the One Ring operates. First up is Phyrexian Arena for 1 black, beginning of your upkeep, you lose a life, draw a card. Black Market Connections, 2 and a black, beginning of your upkeep, choose any of the 3 up to 3. Pay a life, get a treasure, pay 2 life, draw a card, pay 3 life, make a 3/2 changeling. We also have Greed, 3 and a black, pay a black and 2 life, draw a card. And Necropotence, triple black, skip your draw phase, pay life to set cards aside, and then put them into your hand at the beginning of your end step. And whenever you discard a card, it gets exiled from the game. So do you notice a theme here? These are all black enchantments that pay life for cards. I'm actually very surprised that the One Ring doesn't have black mana in it somewhere to give it a black color identity because of this fact. So now every color now has access to just paying life to draw cards, but this is actually a very different design than prior versions. Usually it's, tap, pay a life, draw a card, pay a life on trigger of upkeep, various odds and ends. The closest thing that I can see here is probably Necropotence, because you can get cards in a burst off of it and then use it. This, you tap it, you put a burden counter on it, you draw a card for the burden counters, and then the upkeep, you lose the life. And that builds up. So the next time you do it, you draw 2, then you draw 3, then you draw 4. You get the idea. But eventually that life loss is going to catch up to you. That's kind of the sticking point on the card itself. I wouldn't just run it in any deck, because once you get up to a certain point on the burden counters, you're going to start losing life. Even though you may have to stop drawing cards, you're still going to get dinged in the face for that life. Unlike the other ones that just zap you for 1 life at a time and you still get the cards, because you've basically paid up front for those things. I talked to a bunch of people at my LGS, and they called it, a burst Phyrexian Arena where you get the cards up front. I call it the payday loan version of it, because you're going to get your cards earlier, but you're going to pay for it later with, the interest or the life that you're paying off of the card itself. So that's why I say if you're not planning on winning quickly, your deck is going to need to include some sort of heavy level life gain. Now, at the pre-release, where I had this card, I was using a green-white life gain deck with lots of food creators, so I was able to use the food tokens to kind of get out ahead of the One Ring and keep it from killing me. And the one game where I actually had the most fun, I ended up losing in the end, and I decked myself with the One Ring. But I was up to 5 counters trying to juggle my life total while, trying to dodge my opponent trying to kill me. And eventually, I was down to 1 card left, and I just said, screw it, activated the ring, and drew 6 off of a 1-card library. You know how that goes. But all in all, I drew 15 cards off of the One Ring for the cost of 18 life in total. I had to take a turn off to kind of, keep myself alive off of things and burn up a bunch of food doing it. With that said, it would probably be a really good addition to the Food and Fellowship pre-con deck, since you're going to be making a bunch of food and you have some other ways of doing it, or any kind of, green-white life gain deck. Another way we could go about this is kind of a gain and drain plan where you use things like Blood Artist and those type of things. As long as you have enough creatures to keep feeding the beast of this card and just, ping your opponent, draw life, just keep draining and draining and draining, eventually you're going to draw into something to win the game. Otherwise, you need to be able to have ways of shutting this thing off. So there's a couple of ways I've, doing a little bit of research, found that we can do this with, but they require either a certain artifact or blue in the deck to actually do anything with it. The first way I would do it, because this is a legendary artifact, you can use Mirror Maid, which copies enchantments and artifacts, and you can copy the ring, and you'll sacrifice the one that has all the burden counters on it, and it basically shuts it off. It also gives you an additional version of the protection from everything clause off of the ring to get it to be reused again in Singleton. So that's kind of a nice feature of the card as well. The other way to go about this is an old gem that I found, and I actually have a copy sitting in one of my boxes somewhere, is Aeon Hub. What this thing does for 5 colorless is players skip their upkeep phase. Well, if you don't have an upkeep, you don't get a beginning of upkeep trigger to lose the life off the card. This also screws with some of your opponent's stuff, like rebound spells, because it requires a beginning of upkeep trigger it also to go off. So there's some ways to get around the One Ring that are kind of interesting and fun, but I'm sure I've not got a comprehensive list of ways of messing with this. We also got to have things that, sacrifice artifacts and things like that, just ways to shut it off, or there's a multitude of ways of messing with this. I would love to know what your thoughts are on the matter. Do you think this card is very good, or do you think it's pushed a little too much and it's not that great? I think it's a great card if you put it in the right kind of deck. And with that said, I love to hear your comments in the below. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.